The fact of the matter is, until you go down there and actually see what's going on and correct it, it's not going to change.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
She knows she's getting the question on why she's not going to be there. Why haven't you visited the border? And the answer, like Jordan said, could be too much distraction. We're sending our people down there. We're at the border every day with our people. But instead, it's almost like plausible deniability.
It appears that she's being dismissive to Americans who are truly concerned about this crisis, the sex trafficking, the drugs, the national security. And she's almost like she's laughing it off. And I'm sorry, she mentioned that she hasn't been to Europe either. There is no U.S. border crisis in Europe. There is one here.
Here's Vice President Harris. Take a listen to this. This is something that Donald Trump would have said on the campaign trail, did say on the campaign trail, to differentiate themselves.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come. The United States will continue to enforce our laws and secure our border. And I believe if you come to our border, you will be turned back.
You could cut and paste some of those words from language I would have used or President Trump would have used, but the difference is not words, it was actions that we took, turned the magnet off, that closed our southern border, that secured it in a way that protected American sovereignty. This one's a man-made crisis. This is policy-driven. The administration could stop this surge at the border in a heartbeat by simply reverting to the policies that were in place on January 20th of this year. The data supports it, and I think Americans are going to demand it.
The United States has failed to enforce international law. It's failed to enforce our own laws. And basically, we have printed a huge welcome mat. Please come. While Joe Biden, Vice President Harris are saying what? Don't come. So I think people respond to the facts on the ground, not to the statements mouthed by politicians at the drop of a microphone.
It's a crisis for the country because it affects, we talked about the sex traffickers using the interstate highway system, but now we're finding our own government is taking these now displaced persons and dropping them off. The most recent example is in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
What that does is put an incredible burden upon schools, hospitals, law enforcement, public health agencies, and other entities in southeastern cities in the United States to deal with these children because they just said, coordinate it with us, the governments of the state and local authorities said, and the central government of the United States, the Biden administration, just disregarded that and said, we're going to do it in the dead of night at Wilson Air Center in Chattanooga, Tennessee, dropped them off and let them there, put them on buses and dispersed them to unknown locations. That's not the way you coordinate the proper disposition and coordination of children unaccompanied who have fled from the southern border.
What the Biden administration is doing as part of its affirmative policy is trying to spread the problem throughout the United States, and this is part and parcel of a deliberate policy to change and transform America at the end of the day.
Bad things will happen to the illegal immigrants themselves. That is, they'll end up being trafficked or worse. We'll have increased crime in those places because these people will turn to that in order to figure their way through it. And then we've got an administration that doesn't tell governors and mayors and county commissioners, hey, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, all the while bringing in tens of thousands of people, allowing them to transit our border, and then essentially releasing them all across the country. This is a nationwide problem. It's worse in Arizona, California, and Texas, but it's a problem everywhere in the United States.
They created a humanitarian crisis where people are willing to sell off their children to, as we've talked about, they use them over and over and over again to get across the border. That being said, though, we see images of one or two groups. Think about the fact 178,000 human beings were stopped, If that many people were going through, I bet there's 178,000 plus who made it.